Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Top of Mind webinar. My name is Samuel Hill. I lead product marketing here at Mind. Joined, as always, my co-host, my co-pilot, the Clyde to my Bonnie, Landon Brown, field CTO here at Mind. Landon, we got a pretty fun topic today. We're talking about AI. We're talking about governance, speed, risk, innovation. Gosh, what is there not to love?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic for us to talk about today because as we see the evolution of the data security landscape, one of the things that we see CISO is really trying to do is get trust in their data to really fuel innovation. But there's serious hurdles to that. And so we're joined by Ryan Fritz today, who's going to help us get some tangible thoughts around how our organization's managing AI and AI governance and using that to accelerate into faster innovation.
And he really is one of the greatest people we could have thought of to have on for this topic. Ryan Fritz is the Chief Information Officer at Everon Solutions. Ryan, welcome to the Top of Mind webinar.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for asking.
And Ryan, the leading question, right? The thing that we kind of led off with this whole webinar, the topic is AI moving too fast to govern nowadays?
I mean, I view governance as always a reactionary item, right? Usually you try to identify the risk to build a governance framework around the risk. And when the risks accelerate into real, tangible, loss generating events as quickly as, AI adoption has led it to, it becomes an item that, the importance and the velocity really kind of outpace the historic reality for risk management. I liken it to the historic reality of vulnerability management. You go back many, many years and hey, 30 days on a critical vulnerability was very acceptable. Now, if you're not responding within 24, 48 hours, you're missing the boat. And so the velocity and speed of change have gotten very aggressive in this front.
But I mean, that's kind of been, uh, not to say it, but maybe I'll say the quiet part out loud. The historical knock on governance programs is they work because they slow things down. They allow processed decisions to be made, things to be assessed, structures put in place. And I think that's what the pace of changes you're identifying with AI. That's a little bit where this rub is. The beauty of AI is the speed, the innovation at scale, but the power of governance is let's slow things down. It's almost like an irresistible object is meeting an immovable force. And so how do we combine both of these two realities?
I mean, if I think about it, right, it's a very new paradigm in that governance frameworks have concepts for how they structure, right? You're dealing with a business process flow executed by a human or by a non-human identity. And those flows have, kind of rigid controls and AI kind of just sits as an overlap between both of them, right? With agentic AI in particular, which is certainly the most aggressively growing aspect of the market, you have an identity and a system that operates more human like than the traditional kind of NHI, but it's not a human identity. So, how do you apply a governance framework, right, to a machine that is also making
Mm.
independent decisions that are non-deterministic? And that's the really key piece of the equation, is that agents are operating in a non-deterministic way on systems and data. And, fundamentally, that's just a paradigm we haven't historically had the frameworks built to really define and control.
Yeah, I think, Ryan, when I think about all of the programs and structure that we have around governance today, right? It could be vulnerability management. It could be governance just for data security. It could be governance across the org for many, many different things. If we look past the past 10 years, a lot of organizations have very, very well constructed programs with shared responsibility in place. And when NIST started coming out with the AI risk framework, and the other organizations, regulating authorities started coming out with theirs, the one thing that I noticed was it seemed to really challenge the status quo for how governance was handled in an organization. So I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts around how do organizations evolve what they're doing in governance to keep up with that pace of change?
I mean, it's being ready to move at the pace of the business, right? If the business is going to move fast, your set of processes for identifying and managing that risk have to move at the same velocity, right? Uh, Ultimately, the business is going to be taking that risk in all likelihood in a silo or a vacuum of control. And you need to be as prepared to meet that velocity with your own, and identifying the structures for um, uh, identification, classification, control criteria. Um, you know, uh, it's such a hard item right now. I mean, obviously, a lot of the standards bodies are trying to put out standards and policies. It's an area that, I mean, if you go back 24 months, right, MCP was not I mean, so you have these whole structures that have been created and evolving in just record time. And you as a security leader have to be willing to meet that velocity with your own.
And do you find, Ryan, that a lot of security leaders are kind of having that conversation right now about matching the velocity of their business?
Oh, I can promise they're having the conversation because the business is going to be having it with them. Because I mean, there's a multiple avenues you could take from a control perspective. You could take just an outright mitigating control and just say, I'm going to block everything. And it leads to the business seeking ways around controls, which brings its own risks with it, or pushing you to adapt to the environment in which they're operating so that they don't lose ground to competitors, right? So, I mean, it's still a business. Businesses are in the uh, in the game to take risks and generate growth. And how do you enable them to do it in a way that doesn't outpace the actual underlying appetite for the business?
And I know that's kind of the conversation today, right? It's moving fast. Your business is asking you to move fast along with it. And so as a leader, building the processes, the structures, getting the people in place, all the organizational buy-in that you need in order to best process that risk and enable it in a safe manner. Landon, let's start with you here on this question. What are some practical things? Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding for your governance and risk management, risk acceptance programs
Mhm.
with AI adoption. What are some practical steps that you've seen customers adopt that help them keep pace with the business, but also bring to bear what governance is good at, which is, yeah, let's actually slow this down. Let's think about the business use case we want to achieve with this tool instead of just willy nilly adopting whatever new shiny thing comes out. How do you
Mhm.
balance that? What are some best practices there that you've seen?
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess my thoughts are very balanced around mastering the foundations and mastering the basics, right? And I think some of the AI governance frameworks today have really focused on having things like an AI intake process, having these committees and AI governance committees. And I think while they're really good foundational steps, what they don't address is it's another process for the team to actually manage. And so one of the tangible things that I've seen outside of saying buy more tooling, which I don't think is ever a good answer, is really reevaluating what shared responsibility looks like between governance and security. We have tools that are being developed at light speed. We have teams that are trying to adopt these tools at light speed. We have users that are doing that even faster, right? And so I think one of the things that I've seen that's really, really valuable that I would love Ryan Fritz's kind of furthering comments on is reevaluating the synergistic teamwork and shared responsibility that governance and security have together so that we're not just adopting a new process, but we're re-evolving the existing one.
Yeah, I mean, it really stems from policies, right? How do your policies and guidelines really define how you want to operate? And you have to be willing to change some of those. Again, the more you add in and you view everything as additive, everything gets bigger, heavier, wider. And you have to be willing to put everything back on the table and think about re-engineering some of those policies and guidelines that dictate those SOPs and processes within the business. Because ultimately, you have to be able to adapt to the current situation and not treat it as yet another thing, but rather part of a whole. And what's the best way to tackle that whole? And so, in my view, I would view, it's a moment, right, to review all of the policies, guidelines, processes, to say, hey, how can we structure these better to move faster? Because the business is going to be moving fast, and you have to be willing to think about everything on the table in terms of review and how do you map in a control framework in an environment that's completely different, right? Because I mean, agents and AI change the operating environment. And so if the environment looks different, the control frameworks, the governance processes, the security tooling, all probably need to look different too.
And so as you evaluate that across your organization and kind of lean into this pace of change, what are some things that you're doing to set that foundation at Everon to help one speed up the benefits of AI adoption in a safe manner so that your organization can thrive with it?
Well, it starts with the partnership on the business and being there and willing to move at the pace that they're willing to move. I guess a little unique for me, right? As the CIO, I also control the delivery, not just the security. Um, you know, but I care obviously about both, and I want to move at the speed the business needs to move to maintain competitive advantage, to get the operational efficiency that we need to get to stay competitive with competitors who are doing the same thing. And so I can't view it strictly as me running in my own lane. I have to be looking side to side at what everyone else is doing and ready to react and support our business to get there, or we're going to be all left behind.
Yeah, Samuel, I think I heard a great quote once from a CISO that was both a mentor and a friend of mine, where he said, as a CISO, it's my job to ask the question, not what the business can do for security, but what can security do for the business. And when I think of AI governance and kind of the transformation that, Ryan is talking about and we've talked about today, I certainly think that that phrase rings true.
Yeah, it sounds like obviously you're a business leader who happens to focus on technology and security and running those parts of your organization. But at the end of the day, it's in service of the goals of your overall business. And so I think that's the balance that I'm hoping we can strike is that AI tools are purposeful. They're to achieve something, not just to be thrown onto the network and let operate with impunity. We have to think about what is it achieving and how is it helping our business move forward in the direction that it needs to. And so when you can put it in those perspectives, then the technology teams can come alongside and say, yes, absolutely. I would love to enable our business to succeed, thrive, have competitive advantage, all of those things that are the goals that you guys have. But in order to do that, we have to make sure we're not using our data to train public models and sensitive information isn't being sent out, widely and broadly in places that it shouldn't be, or we don't have some AI tool that now has access to all of our data and is populating it in front of people that should never see certain elements that are within our organization. Our IP is not walking up the building to GitHub in places that, we don't want it to. These things that are real conversations that actually help protect the business and the competitive advantage that you have. It seems like that's the tenor of it. What would you think about that, Ryan?
I agree entirely, right? At the end of the day, it's about empowerment for the business to perform because IT isn't a necessity to operate a business, right? Go back to the 1800s, no computers, businesses still existed, right? We could go back to paper and pencil tomorrow, but that business will not be competitive on a basis of efficiency. And so technology is the basis in which businesses will win or lose on efficiency, and we have to enable it. And we have to enable our business to be more competitive and successful in that. And part of that success is not tripping over yourself with risk management, right? So you don't want those risks to become persistent. You don't want those risks to materialize, right? So how do you materialize the likelihood? And it really is about setting the risk frameworks in place, right? And the governance processes in place that let you move fast without breaking things. And it's a balance, and there's no perfect answer. You can go as slow as you want and still have issues, and you can move as fast as you want and have issues. But how do you put the right processes in place and review it holistically to try to align with the business on what the overall objectives are? And with AI, it's about what are the guardrails. How do you ensure it doesn't hallucinate something going out to a customer, or improperly disclose information, or violate any of its directives around handling and disclosure. So, again, it's a non-deterministic system. It's a new paradigm we have to think about controls around. I'm very happy that NIST and many every standards body in the world right now is very active on trying to align a set of control frameworks. Because again, it comes back to how do I, as a practitioner, ensure that I'm aligned against best practice. And for that, you need those industry bodies to set the standards, for them to be rigorously reviewed, validated, published, because now it provides a basis for me to know that the controls I put in place align. And so right now, everyone's in a sprint the same direction. We're all just trying to catch up to the world after ChatGPT really blew up.
I think that's what we've talked about, and Landon and I were having this conversation earlier today. This AI paradigm shift, I think you said it well. This is today's version of the most disruptive technology that we have out there. I think this will be the current most disruptive technology for some time. But eventually in the future, there will be something else that will be as disruptive, as game-changing for our organizations, for our business. And so having that view of, well, when that happens, we'll also need to adjust and have the lightweight ability to shift the way we govern, the way we admit, the way we control. Those things will be a reality going into the future for whatever disruptive thing comes next. And so it sounds like, Ryan, what you would say is you do not think AI is moving too fast to govern. You just think we need to adapt our process to its speed, and that it would be possible.
I don't think it's moving too fast to govern. I would agree. I don't believe that. I think that ultimately we need to move at the pace it is moving, which is faster than any technology I've been alive to see. It is definitely moving at a breakneck pace, but to say we can't similarly move at that same pace feels disingenuous. It's just admitting failure. As soon as you do that, you have no chance of catching up, right? You have to at least believe you can do it. And I mean, if you ask, security professionals or IT professionals, 5-10 years ago, do you think you could do critical patching in 48 hours? Everybody would have looked at you sideways. We've adapted to that. That is just the reality now. And so I believe that we can move at this pace. Why? Because we have to. There really isn't another option. We're either going to move at the pace or we're going to get left behind. The businesses that we're in will get left behind.
As the country song would say, if you have to do or die, just do it. Ryan, as we close out today, would you there's another security leader or a technology leader listening to this. If you were to give them just a couple of practical pointers around adapting the pace of change in their organization to the speed of AI and their business. Just maybe a couple practical tips as we close out today.
Yeah, I mean, I'd highlight on a couple of things I touched on here, right? Think about the control frameworks that you're deploying holistically, right? Every year you got to review these. Every year is probably an incremental add for you of something net new we have to do. You control those policies and procedures and those guidelines. You can affect the change that you want to affect. It takes work. It's not easy, but you have to be willing to go and think about things holistically and willing to make big drastic changes on how you do. But if you think you're going to get there incrementally, it probably isn't going to happen. You can't speed up incrementally to the pace everybody's moving right now. The only way to speed up dramatically is rethinking how you do. Rethink how you do. Rethink how your teams do. How do they operate?
That is phenomenal advice, Ryan. Really grateful for your time today and for sharing what's top of mind for you, especially in the rapid pace of AI as it evolves across our industry. Hey, everyone, thank you for being here today. For Landon Brown and for Ryan Fritz, my name is Samuel Hill, and that's all for now.